I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we're meeting today and to pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge their traditional custodianship of the land and the contribution they've made to the Australian society. And when Enliven Housing makes that acknowledgement of country, we don't do it lightly. We recognise that we're talking about somebody's home and we're talking about something that's incredibly important to the Aboriginal people of Australia. And we at Enliven hold that value really, really strongly because we think that home is really essential for everyone. We are absolutely passionate about providing good homes for people with disability. Today we're going to be talking to you about a number of different things. It's a 30-minute session, so it goes for a little while. I think it's really worthwhile to stay and be part of the entire session, but if you can't and you're watching this later on, we have some chapters that will tell you when to pick up if you're on the areas that you're interested in. Our first interest is talking to you a little bit about our history and how we got here and what we're doing. We'd like to talk to you about Enliven Community, which is our not-for-profit organisation that talks about housing and what makes good housing for people with disability. And we'd like to talk to you about human rights and why that's important to the NDIS and why it's really important in the housing space. And then I'd like to talk to you about my passionate passion, which is Enliven Housing and what we're doing now, what our model of housing looks like and what we're going to be doing into the future. So we're based in Granville in Western Sydney, and we started our business in November 2018, and it was Tino's idea that he would like to get into the property development field. And then Tino and I met through various contacts, and we had a discussion about what would be a good model of housing, and from there we developed what we think is pretty special. Tino has spent a long time in the property development area, and he saw an opportunity in this space for a couple of different reasons. And whilst I can tell you all about Tino, I will let him do that in a second. But I've come from a background of community housing. I spent 20 years in this space and I hold some very, very strong values. And I was never going to work with anybody who didn't share my values. And when I met Tino, it was just like this coming together of this person who could make this vision come true, really, and was prepared to absolutely listen to my wildest ideas and say, yep, that makes sense, let's do it. And that's it. Tino's, I have to say, he's a go-to person. He's committed himself to actually delivering a product above and beyond just the bricks and mortar. But Tino, I'm not going to oversell you. You feel free to tell us what you think you're doing in this space.
So I've been involved in property development for a number of years and involved also with affordable housing and NRAS. And I was tired of doing developments time and time again and finishing projects with adaptable units. And these units were never used fit for purpose. And that was a waste for the developer, it was a waste for the community, and it was a waste for people with disability. These units would sell for less, they would rent for less, and they were normally positioned in not the best parts of a development. The NDIS was an opportunity to maximise and utilise these apartments fit for purpose and create an opportunity for people with disability to move into areas which were previously unavailable to them. So that's really the main attraction for me, was meeting the needs of a participant with the needs of a developer, with the needs of the community. The three came together holistically to provide a solution. And I think our model in particular provides that.
So the title of this presentation today is actually SDA, the Crossroad, where choice and control meets housing and support. And that's the essential part of everybody's decision here, is about what is the best housing model for you, how does it become choice and control, what choice, what control, and then playing on the NDIS's interest, which is what is reasonable and necessary, and what makes the scheme financially viable. So I hope at the end of this you're left with some ideas about how you can exercise choice and control in this space, which leads on to Enliven Community. Part of Tino's contribution to the sector and part of Enliven Housing's contribution to the sector is that we're really interested in how people get their information and how they make decisions. You can't make a decision unless you've got good information. So we have a side of our business which is really just about being available to talk to people about what is good housing. I have some strong views on that. Good housing is where you get to choose how you live in your home, how your home operates, where your shoes are stored, where your medication is stored, who comes into your home, who answers the phone in your home. Everything about your home is your decision. If you want to have your decorations up around you to make you feel familiar, have your things that are important to you, then it's important to us, and that's important in your home. It's also about how your support providers interact with you in your home. It's about how you share your home and who you share your home with. And from that, we've set up our Enliven community to provide information, advice and referral. We're always happy if someone comes to us to talk about housing, particularly if it's housing that we don't do. We're always going to make referrals and talk to people about other housing providers that we think are really, really good in their space and that people should talk to. We try to encourage debate around the housing issues and what is good housing, and we try to create a space where people can tell us what's important and we can communicate that back to other people when we get the opportunities to do so. Enliven Community's also got some big plans for the future. So beyond just what we're doing at the moment, we also have this amazing idea that Tino came up with, to be fair. So Tino, can you tell us a little bit more about your plans for Enliven Community into the future?
So I'm very excited to announce that we're working on a display space or a hub where we'll have a fully functioning display suite with all of our assistive technology built in, as well as an opportunity for occupational therapists to provide and perform assessments with participants on site. They can bring family members, carers, anyone who has an interest in understanding what SDA looks like in an apartment setting. There'll be private conference facilities and rooms where assessments can be made and refreshments. And it's basically a space where you can come, talk about accommodation, talk about what accommodation looks like in an apartment space, and decide whether that's something you want to embark on or want to embrace before you start that journey.
Our mission as an SDA housing provider is to provide high quality apartment properties which are supported by person-centred tenancy management services for people with disability. We maximise opportunities for our tenants to live independently in and to be part of their local community, to exercise choice and control, and to know and exercise their human rights. We speak about human rights in our mission statement, and it's really important to us at Enliven Housing. The NDIS was introduced to be Australia's response to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disability. And one of those rights has always been about housing. Housing is a human right, but for a long time for people with disability, they weren't sort of included in that concept of housing being a human right. The NDIS has made housing a human right for people with disabilities. And I say that because most of us who have been in the system or have known how this system operates for a long time know that in the past, if you had a roof over your head, that was considered to be meeting your requirements. The quality of that roof, who you lived with, how you lived in that house, who you were supported by, none of those things really mattered. Whether you had the right to privacy, none of that was important. With the introduction of the NDIS, it means that we take that housing is a human right and we take it seriously. And the NDIS has meant that you can now actually make all those choices that you should, and that you have control over those things that many of us take for granted. At Enliven Housing, we firmly believe, support and know that housing is a human right.
Where possible, Enliven Housing will strive to supply a 2-bedroom product over a 1-bedroom product always. We do this for a number of reasons. One, we understand storage and apartment living is generally less than that in a house. We also understand and appreciate that you may want to have someone stay over the night, or someone that's living, a family member that's living interstate that will want to spend a week with you. And why shouldn't you have a family member or friend stay with you at time to time, just as I would have a family friend stay with me rather than choose staying in a hotel. We understand people with disability may be spending longer periods in their apartment. Therefore, the aspect and the position and the amount of light, the amount of air an apartment achieves is very, very critical in our understanding. Where possible, we take quite a lot of effort with our design team to choose the 10 apartments that provide the best balance in all these areas. Enliven Housing will often choose an area based on a set of criteria. We want our developments generally to be 300 or 400 metres from public transport, a station, a tram stop, a local shopping centre. These are things that are very, very important. So location still applies for SDA property as it does for any property. And because we treat our tenants like a buyer, our tenants are going to view our properties in the same way a buyer will choose a property. They will look at the location, they'll look at the amenities, they'll look at the layout, the colour, the feel, and the vibe of the area and decide, do I want to live in this area or not? Because that's what choice and control is about.
At Enliven Housing, we strongly believe that good quality apartments coupled with good quality housing and tenancy management are the things that give people the basis for going forward in their life. I don't think I've told you about our apartment model. We only do apartment living. That's because we actually strongly believe that people should live by themselves if they want to, and because we do 2-bedroom apartments, if they want to share, and the NDIS agrees, then they can share too, but it's their choice as to whether they share or not. So we have 10 apartments in a block. We have an 11th apartment, which is what we call our support hub, and it's where our on-site overnight support provider is based. And then we rent our units to 10 people, and we'll talk a little bit more about who we rent to. But obviously the NDIS funding categories that are applied to apartments are improved livability, fully accessible and high physical support. And we actually are very proud of the fact that we provide housing for all 3 of those funding categories. You don't just have to be at the high physical support for us. Fully accessible and improved livability are catered for. And when we talk a little bit more about our model, you'll understand, or hopefully you'll see why our model does actually cater for all 3 support areas. In some developments, we actually have a 12th apartment that we're using for medium-term accommodation. We know that people, as we're building our apartments and we're moving our tenants into our apartments, or our tenants are having the opportunity to move in, there are still people who are looking for accommodation and waiting for their forever home. Hopefully that forever home is going to be in one of our apartments, but it might not be. But we know that people need an immediate access to safe, secure housing that meets their disability support needs. So we spec our medium-term accommodation up to the high physical support standards, but we make it available under the medium-term accommodation program. Our model provides opportunities for shared support, not shared housing. That's incredibly important to us. But in designing it, we decided that there were a couple of things that were also important. And one of those is our friendly landlord model, which is really about how we deliver a person-centred tenancy management service for people with disability. We know that some people with disability are going to require a little bit more support to exercise their tenancy rights, to even know their tenancy rights, and to deliver on their tenancy obligations. It's a mutual 2-way street. And through that, we expect that our support of people will help their skills development, but it'll also ensure that their tenancy is safe, is secure, and it's long-term. Our friendly landlord model is based on communication, commitment, collaboration, and community. So when it comes to communication, we know that we don't just write a letter to our tenant telling them that they've got a property inspection. We know that we've got to let all the other stakeholders of their life who are important to that process, who are part of that process and will contribute to it, need to know what's going on. We don't breach people's privacy. We have those conversations at the beginning and say, who do you want us to talk to keep your tenancy moving along and doing the things that you're meant to be doing? So we communicate to everybody, but we always do it with your permission, and we tell you what we're communicating and when. There is no decision about the person with a disability without them being fundamental to that decision making. In terms of commitment, we're here for the long haul. We want our tenants to be sustainable. We know that SDA is really about people being able to make choice and control about where they live. And like all of us, one time we want to live here, and then in 7 years' time we want to live somewhere else. That's fine. That's part of that's the scheme. That's what we're meant to be doing. Whilst you want to live in an Enliven Housing property, then we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you can stay in that property and live in it safely. Collaboration. We work with stakeholders and other people in the sector to make sure that we're staying up to date with what's important to people with disability. We're staying up to date with innovation in our sector. We believe that no one organisation has all the answers for any aspect of disability service provision, and the more open we are to ideas and innovation, the more we can pass those on to our tenants and they can benefit from it. But the most important part of our model, I think, is the community, the aspect of community. When you live in an apartment, you can get isolated, and that's never been our goal, it's never been our intention. We think that if people have access to community and they know their neighbours and they're part of a community, it makes such a difference. It's the whole social role valorisation that we think is so important. So we developed our community cooperative. The community cooperative is the mechanism by which our tenants are able to make decisions about their shared support. Community cooperatives happen all over the world. They're so important on so many different levels for different purposes. So you'll see food community cooperatives, you'll see growers cooperatives, you'll see farmers markets. They're all cooperative concepts. They're about people coming together, sharing resources to get a better outcome for the group. Our community cooperative, we can see in the future, can not only just help choose the shared support provider, not only just help manage that relationship with the shared support provider, But people might choose to use it to get discounts with electricity, group discounts for travel. They might use it to everybody to go to the local chemist and get their Webster packs filled, and hopefully get some bonus at the end of the year that each person has some money to spend on certificates at Christmas time. It could be that you want to have yoga classes, and we all decide we want to do yoga on the rooftop, and that the three of us combine together and actually could afford that using our NDIS funding if that's what we were doing. So the cooperative is starting out in a very specific purpose, which is how we choose and manage our support provider going forward. But it has a lot of opportunity going forward where it really is up to the members of the cooperative how much they want to use it, what they want to do with it. With regard to our SIL providers, which is such an important part of the equation for us, we've taken a lot of time to choose the partners in this space that we think are really, really good at their job. We are coming from a values-based proposition. We spend months and months and months having conversations about values. What would you do if? How will we manage this? What will happen here? Is that right? Have we communicated that fairly? Those sorts of conversations are taking place behind the scene before we make a formal offer to say, yeah, we want to be a partner with you. By the same token, our SIL partners are doing that same evaluation of us and deciding whether they want to be as partner with us. So we're really, really proud with the partners that we are working with. The likes of Civic, Sylvan Val, Life Without Barriers, Next. They are all good players in the market, good providers of support services, and they've chosen to partner with us. We are entering into an agreement with them at the beginning of our arrangements, mainly because SIL provision is so very, very important, and if we get it wrong, it's got some really significant consequences. So in our model, we thought we would find somebody who we shared values with, work with them long before the property is ready to be moved into, making sure we've got all the agreements in place, making sure we have the values in place, knowing what we're doing, and being able to support our mutual customers going forward. So on the day that people are moving in, they know the SIL provider knows them, and we've all managed to mitigate as many risks as possible. And we've managed to mitigate hopefully any trauma or fears or anything that makes it a negative experience, and that we've addressed those issues so that moving into your own home and getting those keys from Georgia, our tenancy manager, is kind of a highlight, not a scary moment in your lives. The SIL providers all come in knowing that they're here for a fixed term and that they will be working with the community cooperative, and it's the community cooperative that will be making the decision about the ongoing nature of their relationship. If the community cooperative is not working, if the community cooperative feels that the SIL provision's not working, we have regular meetings so that people can talk about that. The SIL can say, wow, we didn't realise that, yeah, sure, we can fix that. And people are actually empowered to have decisions about how their support operates, particularly their shared support. It's no longer you're just one of a group, you're actually the group that actually employs the SIL provider. So our community cooperative is a fundamental pillar of our model. We have 4 pillars of things that we think are important to the Enliven Housing model. I've spoken about 2, and I'm now going to ask Tino to tell you about the other 2 that are as equally as important. And the first one of those is the blended category that we work towards.
From the onset, Enliven Housing was very concerned about certain categories of disability being disenfranchised. So our first pillar was our blended category support, where we wanted to support improved livability, fully accessible and high physical support under one roof. We believe that reflects the diversity in society and also reflects and provides a better environment inside the SDA complex and development, where people can interact with other people without everyone looking and feeling the same. So the blended category support is something we hold very true, and we've had an amazing level of interest from these categories that up to recently have not been supported.
Thanks for that, Tina. Now I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to tell us a little bit more about the SDA Assistive Technology that we're utilising in the apartments and how that is important and why it's important and what it can do.
So Assistive Technology works with us and for us. The idea is that the outputs from the apartment are transmitted to the SIL office, and this appears on a dashboard. And that dashboard allows the SIL inside the office to understand what rules, if any, have been broken. So let's take this apartment and send Susie. We have a 2-bedroom apartment. If the door sensor is broken at any point, it's transmitted onto the dashboard and allows the SIL to understand if the door's been opened. This is very relevant if someone is prone to leaving their apartment at 2 a.m. in the morning. As you enter through the apartment, there are a series of PIR sensors that pick up movement between rooms. And once again, rules can be created with the assistance of the tenant and family members and the OT, working together to create a customized solution for the tenant in that environment. As we move into the bathroom, we can have light sensors. As we move into the kitchen, we can have heat sensors. We can tell whether the stove has been left on. Tenants have a number of ways they can communicate with the SIL. They can use the video conferencing facilities in the room. They can use their mobile phone. There's voice activation. So there is certainly more than one way to communicate with the SIL depending on what you choose. In the area of assistive technology, there are a myriad of products available at the moment and more coming out daily. I suppose the most important thing for me is we want what we call a baseline level of assistive technology in the apartment because we feel that's necessary for security, safety for the participant. However, we totally accept and understand that each tenant or each participant is going to be different and they're going to have different needs. So we need a model that's scalable and that we can build on and that it will continue to grow as the tenant grows and as his or her needs grow. So assistive technology is not static. That's really the take-home message. It's something that continues to evolve and will continue to evolve in our model. So the pipeline for Enliven this year is pretty exciting, with Sanssouci being our first development, and that's going to be completed in late July 2020. And the participants have all been chosen and they're all excitedly preparing to move in. The next development we have coming online will be Belfield and Auburn, which is very exciting for us because this will be our first community cooperatives that will have very much a multicultural lean. And that's not just a throwaway sentence or line. The SIL not only being bilingual, our marketing advertising has been very much grassroots, trying to ensure that marginal cultural groups and cultural groups that have never embraced SDA are made aware of the opportunities SDA can bring to them. And our last property for 2020 is Rockdale, The Wave, and again, we're right in the middle now of panel selection, working with allied health workers and the SIL to determine the final 10 for Rockdale. There's some exciting projects on the boil for next year. We'll watch out and stay close to our social media for those announcements. 2021 is going to be pretty exciting for us as well. We've got our first property in Melbourne, and we'll also be announcing Queensland in the not too distant future. We also have a number of great sites coming online in Sydney in 2021, including Thornley, Blacktown and North Kellyville, just to name a few. Our website will be constantly updated with new sites as they become available, so I suggest you follow us at www.enlivenhousing.com.au.
Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope that you got something out of our presentation. And if you're interested in learning more, feel free to call me. Our number is 1300 210 220, and I'm always happy to take a phone call. In fact, it's diverted to my phone, so you're bound to get me. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Tino, for adding your inputs and your vision and helping us to bring together something that is just, I think, is amazing. So, and look, thank you for joining us. I hope you got a lot out of it. We certainly enjoyed actually presenting it for you too, so thank you.